We don't grow out of everything. My name is Brian McIntosh. This is the Daily Dose. And, you know, little kids are notorious for making mountains out of molehills, aren't they? I mean, I know that my daughter, my youngest daughter especially, I have conversations with her all the time where I'll say, honey, is this a big deal or a little deal? Right? And she always looks at me and goes, it's a little deal. I'm like, okay, so let's treat it like a little deal, right? Let's save the kicking and screaming and tears and wailing and gnashing of teeth for the really big deals, right? And, and that's because kids just have a tendency to do that, right? They drop their Play-Doh in the sand and then, it's like the end of the world, right? Whereas adults, we know a little sandy Play-Doh just isn't that big of a deal, right? In the big picture scheme of things, it's just not that important. But when you're smaller and you're younger and that Play-Doh is your favorite toy, that could be an extremely large deal. It's the equivalent of a grown man wrecking his brand new Mercedes into a brick wall or something, right? Big deal for the guy. But again, in the big picture scheme of things, if he's not hurt and he still has his health and he's got insurance, then it's really not that big of a deal, right? If you look at it from a long-term perspective. So as kids have a tendency to really blow things out of proportion. Well, as adults, we're supposed to grow out of that, right? We're supposed to grow out of that tendency to just blow things completely out of proportion, but not everyone does. And all of us, even as adults, are prone to fits of high emotion over things that don't warrant that kind of response. And the downside to that is that kind of volatile reaction to things that are truly not that large of a deal has a repulsive effect on people. People tend to steer away or around you if they feel as though there's an explosion coming and they never know when it's going to happen, right? So that's a repulsive characteristic, and we want to avoid those. We want to embrace and embody attractive characteristics, not repulsive characteristics. And so that's one that's repulsive. And so how do you gauge that? I mean, how do you know if your response to a situation or a person or a conversation or a remark, how do you know if it's an overreaction or not? And the answer is appropriateness, right? Is to take a look at the appropriateness of your response, right? Here's something else you can do. Find someone that's truly successful in whatever area of your life it is that you want to be successful in and model their behavior. Watch how they respond to adversity. Watch how they respond to other people. Watch how they respond to rude comments or aggressive behaviors. And recognize that as a trait that you either do or don't like about that person. And if you do, then model that. There's another word for this, and we've done this same lesson on the Daily Dose any number of different times in any number of different ways, but it's also called your emotional quotient or your EQ or your emotional intelligence, which states your ability to respond appropriately to people and circumstances. And that's a skill set because, again, we're kind of born into this world with that ability to kind of blow things out of proportion. But we're supposed to, as adults, grow beyond that. And that comes, just like every other thing that we do as adults, all the other behavior modifications that we go through from childhood into adulthood is learned. But in some cases, maybe we didn't have the right examples. Maybe our parents didn't set the right example for emotional maturity for us when they were younger. Or maybe we hung around with a crowd that was, a bunch of drama queens and everything was a big deal and everything was a monumental occasion, right? If that's the truth, then it's okay, but recognize it and begin to let molehills be molehills and let mountains be mountains. And what you'll find is your life will become much less tumultuous. Your life will become much more calm. You'll become much more capable of dealing with the small little problems in your life because you won't let them overwhelm you emotionally. That's the dose, guys. You know what to do. Well, make it a great week.